We are going to look at lesson 6 today. So this is our investigate. We're just kind of getting started with loops. So we're going to go through each one of these levels. There's not a lot today. So again, we're just trying to get you used to these loops and how they work and different things that you can do with them. So this is a coin flip simulator. If I run it, you can see I can put in like a number. All right, and then when I click the coin, it's going to randomly generate how many heads and how many tails I got. All right, so they're kind of asking you, like, how does this app process that information? What's the input? All right, obviously the input is the number of flips that you want to do, because if I change this to like 20, then I'm going to get 20. All right, and it's just kind of randomly doing that for me. What is repeated? Right? Where is the opportunity for a for loop and what information does the app output? So obviously the output is the total number of heads and total number of tails. As far as like where's the loop being used, you can kind of see that if I put, like 15 in here, it's obviously going to do some sort of loop, where it's going to run code 15 times. And each time it's going to determine whether that, flip or that run of the code generated a heads or a tails. All right, so that's kind of the code that we're looking at. So once you kind of have that, you can finish and continue. Then we're going to look at the second level on this lesson. And now it's going to give us the code. So we can see that it's creating 3 variables up top. One is for heads. That's probably going to count how many times heads was generated. Tails to count how many times tails was generated, and then total flips is going to keep count of how many total flips do I want to use. Right? That's going to most likely come from this input that the user has. So then I have an on event for the coin, because that's going to kick this off. And what it's doing on 7 and 8, it's basically making sure that head starts at 0 and tails start at 0. The idea is when I first create this variable, I set them equal to 0. But let's say I run this one time and I get, 6 heads and 4 tails. At that point, heads is equal to 6 and tails is equal to 4. If I were to run it again, I need to make sure that these start at 0 before I do it. Otherwise, heads is going to start at 6 for my second coin flip round, and it's just going to start adding from 6. That's not what I want. So it's going to reset those values to 0 for me, and then it's going to make sure total flips is equal to whatever number they type in here, and then here's my loop, right? So they're asking like on what lines of code is it using a loop? So you're looking at 11 through 20. That's where the loop is. Which lines of code decide how many times to flip the coin? So I can see that I'm getting the total number of flips from this flip num input. It's going to get that number. And then I know in my for loop, there's 3 parts to it. The first part, I create my counter variable. So I'm creating this variable I, setting it equal to 0. This is my Boolean expression. So this is where it's determining how many flips, right? I've got the number that I want. As long as I is less than that number that the user gives me, then I can continue randomly generating either a 0 or a 1, which is going to be my flip. And then I'm just saying 0 is heads, so I'm going to increase heads by 1. If it's not a heads, it has to be a tail, so I would increase tails by 1. All right. They're asking you, what does this plus plus do? Right? We've seen this a few times. I haven't really talked about it. Normally, what you would see is something like this. Right? If I wanted to add 1 each time, I would say heads equals heads plus 1. Right? Basically, line 15 and 16 do the exact same thing. This is just a shorter way to say it. If I just say the variable name and put plus plus at the end, it will add 1 each time. Or I could specifically write it out and say heads equals heads plus 1. All right, so this is just a simple way to do this. But no, it doesn't work if I wanted something like this. If I wanted to add 2 each time, this won't work. This is just going to add 1. All right, but that's what that plus plus is doing. So what they want us to do is kind of change the counting variable in our for loop. So again, I was talking about this in the lecture video. This variable that I'm creating right here, I can use any name that I want for it. So what they're asking us to do is change it from I to J. I just need to make sure I change it everywhere. So in this case, I'm going to create the variable. I'm going to make it J instead of I. So in my Boolean expression, I need to make sure that I look that J is less than total flips. And then after this code is run, when it's going to iterate the next time, I need to make sure I add 1 to J, not to I. All right, and that's really it. I could have used anything I wanted here. All right, I could use mynum, and mynum. Right? This isn't really good practice. Usually we just use letters, so we'll start at I. If I have another loop, I'd use J. You know, I could say K, 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 right? It really doesn't matter. Just make sure that they're all the same. All right? So once you have that change and you understand this code, you can run it, finish it, go to the next level. All right, so this one is a little more involved. They want us to look at the 4 different loops and what does each one do. Take a look at the names of the screen elements in design mode and see like how that's being used in there to help us iterate over this. You know, if we wanted, we could make some changes and see how that changes things. And then they want us to kind of change the expression around. So I'm not going to do all of this because I think some of it doesn't matter. But I do want to run this, right? So the idea behind this is I can put a phrase in here and it's going to include it in every single one of my font type, you know, outputs that I have. And then I can change the color. I can change, you know, the size of it, kind of do whatever I want here. I can also choose a random phrase and do the same thing with it, right? Change the size, all that. So if we're looking at the code, I can see this line here. I'm creating a variable called phrases. I see the square bracket, so I know that this is a list. And inside this list, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 different phrases, right? So when I click random phrases, it's choosing one of these 4. So that's going to be that random access pattern that we talked about when we were learning about list. What is important here is you'll see that there are, you know, there's a for loop in this on event for the input. This is the slider. There's a for loop. There's a color drop down with a for loop. And then here's our random access pattern where we're generating that random number using that phrases list and the length of the phases list -1 to make sure I'm getting at that last element. And then with that, I am, you know, putting that phrase into these output, these text boxes. So what I want to go through really quick is these for loops because they're kind of tricky. I don't think you're going to be doing this much in your projects, but I have seen students use it. But it's an important concept to know. And really what they're getting at here is this variable, right? So understand, when you are writing your for loop, this first block of code that goes inside the parentheses, this is where you're creating your counter variable. That's why we use var here, because this is a new variable that only exists inside of this for loop. Once you create that, not only can we use it here in our Boolean expression to see if we should continue, we use it here to make sure that we iterate it each time to check and see if our loop should continue. But we can also use it inside of our for loop. All right, so if you look at this set property, it's saying I want to set the property for this element, which is the string text, and then I'm concatenating the value of I. All right, so this is kind of an ingenious way to do some things. If you look at your app in design mode, you will notice that this input is text 0. This input is text 1. This is text 2, right? Text 3 and text 4. So what they're able to do here, I know I starts at 0. And I'm going to keep going until I reaches 4, because once it reaches 5, it's going to stop. And there's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 different texts, right? Text 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. So using this I variable inside of here, instead of writing you know, 5 different set properties, one for each element, I'm using a loop and this I variable to help me set the element ID that I want to update. Right? And that's how this loop is able to add this input to all of these, quite easily. So this, the first time through, this will say text 0, which is that element ID, right? And then it's going to add, or it's going to get that text, right? And then it's going to change I to 1, so then this will say text 1, and this ID is text 1, right? So it's a way for us to kind of loop through this. And that's really what you should kind of get from this, right? This idea of the phrases, these different loops, right? Each one is assigned to a different input that we can do, whether we're doing a random phrase, doing the slider, changing the color, right? This, again, is that random access pattern. I won't go into this too much, but it's doing the same thing. All they need us to do on here is add a play sound to the random button. So when this random button's clicked, they want me to play a sound. So I'm just going to add play sound. It doesn't matter what sound you pick, you just need to pick one, so we'll go with the chicken. They want us to change the counting variable to a different letter. Does your program still work? So you can we'll keep this one I, right? This one I'm going to say J, J, and J, and then I also need to change it here because that should be J as well. For this one, I'll use K. All right, make sure I change it there. And then we'll go to, I'm not going to use L because that's kind of hard to see, but I'll use M. All right, so as long as I change it in all the spots, I can name this whatever I want. My code's still going to run. All right, you can hear my chicken playing. I can still do the slider. The other thing they wanted you to do was add more phrases to the list. So again, with this variable phrases where we have our list, I can, add whatever I want. All right. You could add a second or a third one if you wanted to. I just need to see that you did at least one. So once you do that, you can go ahead and finish this level. Level 4 is just a check for understanding, and that's going to do it for lesson 6.